moving on to Colin. Colin, welcome. Lovely to see you, and thank you so much for persevering to join us. Welcome from all the way from the coast of Kenya, and
Thank you.
we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us this evening about the very special woodlands, the Dakatcha Woodlands, and the endangered inhabitants of this woodland. So thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you, Rick. Can you hear me all right?
Perfectly.
Perfect, good, okay. Well, thanks very much, and sorry I was a bit late for joining you, but this is great to be able to share a little bit about our work that we're doing here in Kenya. Shall I share my screen? Is that all right, Rick? I've got
Perfect.
a little presentation to do.
Yes, that's great, thanks.
Let me see, here we go. Let's see if that works. Can you see that all right?
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay.
There we go, perfect. Lovely.
All right.
Over to you.
Thank you. So Les kindly asked me, or given me the chance to share a little bit about the work which we're doing here in Kenya. I work for Arosha Kenya, which is a Christian conservation organization working in 20 countries around the world. We've been functioning here in Kenya for over 20 years now. And in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, we've had a focus on this area of woodland and forest, which is a bit north of where we are. It's called the Dakatcha Woodland. I've got a map in the next couple of slides, which I'll show you. And it's a forest which is very much under threat for them. Let's see if I can get this going. Here we go. It's so we're right on the coast of Kenya. You can see the map there on the left. You can see a town Malindi in yellow. Just inland of that is this forest here, the Arabuko forest, which has been kind of our focus for much of our work over the last 20 years. It's world-renowned for a number of endemic and near-endemic species of birds and other taxa. But to the north of it, this quite large area is called the Dakatcha Woodland Important Bird Area, or Important Key Biodiversity Area, it's also known as. But for many years, it was hardly known at all, really, what was there. It's an amazing, diverse mixture of habitats of the open Miombo woodland, as in the photo on the right there, and then more dense thickets of forests dominated by a tree called Cyanometra weberi, and other areas of much taller trees with thick bush in between them, and then also savanna and quite a lot of seasonal wetlands. It was kind of on the map, really, because 1 or 2 early expeditions into the area, the very few people who had been in there looking had found the endemic Clark's weaver. Clark's weaver is a bird which Dieter will know well, as I see he's on watching tonight, and it was known from Arabuko and only Arabuko until it was discovered in the Dakatcha woodlands. There've been quite a lot of work done in Arabuko over the years, many birders and ornithologists working there. Nobody ever found it breeding. So the thought was it must breed in Dakatcha. And so from around 2000 onwards, I was making regular expeditions into the area looking for breeding Clark's weavers. And finally, someone else found them, not me, but I was able to go and enjoy and study the breeding event that time in 2013, found breeding in a small seasonal wetland. And they've been found to breed about, I think there's been about 4 subsequent breeding events which have been observed and recorded. So that was the reason why we were exploring the woodlands at that time. But in the process, we were doing quite a few surveys, exploring the area. And in about 2001, we were setting up tents in an area where we were expecting to find Clark's weaver. And Albert, the man in blue in the middle there, said, "Stop, I can hear a Secaucus scops owl." Now, the Secaucus scops owl is Africa's smallest owl. It's literally only 15 centimeters tall and was known only from Arabuko Secaucus and had been recorded in the northern forests of Tanzania, or Sambara Mountains, but a very small population there. And it was a complete surprise to have recorded it north of the Sabaki River and quite a bit further north from Arabuko. So that was really quite an exciting discovery. Now, we only had, I think, 3 birds at that location, and clearly they were in a very marginal habitat for the species. They prefer the dense thicket on red soils. And in that place we found them, that thicket and forest had been completely cleared and turned into farmland. And so they were now just hanging out on the edge of that in the Miombo Dakatcha woodland and only just surviving. But that led to a later discovery about 5 years later of another population further north, together with quite a few other species of birds and animals and insects that made us realize that the Dakatcha woodlands are actually quite a special place, not just for the Clark's weaver, which is the photo on the right there, but also the Secaucus scops owl. You can see the 2 phases, the beautiful red, rufous red phase and then the gray phase. And then also we had heard reports of the golden-rumped sengi, which is about a rabbit-sized animal. It's also known as an elephant shrew, but they're not elephants and they're not shrews. They're insectivores, a very unique group of animals. And this one, the golden-rumped elephant shrew, is only found again in Arabuko Secaucus and in the Dakatcha woodlands. Like I say, it had only been reported from there, there'd been no proof. And then last year we had set up camera traps and finally got the first confirmed images of the golden-rumped sengi in that area. And subsequently got quite a number of shots from a good number of locations, which has been encouraging. Further to that, we've also recorded the Secaucus pipit, which is another red-listed species, also endangered, and then various tree species also known as, are considered to be globally vulnerable. So this is a kind of view, one of the views across. It's a shallow valley that we've really invested in that runs north-south. This is a view looking west and down into the valley, and you can see the sort of this dark forest along here. This is the area where the Secaucus scops owl is found. It's been a really exciting journey to be able to explore this area and try and find out more about what's in there. Pretty much everything we're finding is completely new to science, really, in terms of what exists in that area. It's an area that hasn't been explored almost at all biologically. As a result, we've come up with a wide diversity of stuff. Over 200 species of birds within the reserve area, over 100 butterflies and counting. Well, I'm sure we're going to have probably 150 to 200 species of butterfly by the time we max out on identifying what's there. 24 species of mammal, including leopard, which we've caught. Basically all our mammal records have come from camera trapping, and also serval cat, the only record of serval on the coast, which, whilst it's not a globally red listed species, it's a beautiful animal to have. But it's in an area which is under serious threat. The bird on the right there is a southern banded snake eagle, and again, that's regionally vulnerable species. But there's just fantastic diversity in the area, and a great privilege to be able to be studying it and doing something to protect it. Through this, of course, as this is really a citizen science hour, I thought I must mention that we are indeed using citizen science for collecting a lot of our baseline data, not only through the Kenya Bird Map project, which is a sister project to SABAP2 and actually grew out of SABAP2, but also for the virtual museum. And we've had a lot of young Kenyans and others. This is Apollo, who's currently volunteering with us, who's very keen on taking photographs and uploading them. So it's been great to get young Kenyans involved, collecting data for us, and contributing to the whole process of building up a proper picture of what there is in Dakatcha. However, the area is quite seriously threatened with problems and with local extinction. This is an area, the photograph down below, would have been prime habitat for the Secaucus gopsal only a few years ago. But the red soil, you can see the red soil over on the right here, is particularly productive for pineapples, which is what is growing here. And so people have moved in, have cleared quite large areas of that particular habitat and planted pineapples. Now, sadly, the pineapples don't thrive for very long, only about 3-4 years, and then people tend to leave it, abandon the plot, and clear a fresh area of forest. And so that has been a challenge over the years. We've already had, we've been fighting that, or been aware of it for some time. But what's happened in most recent time is that there's been, charcoal burning has really increased. When I first started visiting the area in 2000, first 4 or 5 years, first 4 years found absolutely no charcoal burning at all anywhere. And then at the end of 2004, we found charcoal kilns, and since then it's just increased exponentially. And it is a huge, huge problem now, particularly now that they've opened up the area, put roads through. There are cheap motorbikes available that people can buy very easily, and they're now being used to transport the charcoal out of the forest. So you don't need to bulldoze a big road through the forest. Just a little trail will allow a motorbike to take the charcoal out. And then also power saws has obviously made it much easier for people to cut the trees down, and that is a huge, huge problem. And then the latest thing is in September this year, just a month ago, month and a half ago, the government started adjudication of the land. In other words, issuing plot numbers and mapping them, and actually starting the process of issuing title deeds, which has led to a lot of people showing an interest from all over the country to come in to plant pineapples, plant other things, clearing the forest. The hunger for land in Kenya is insatiable, really. People really are after land, and so that has really forced the issue in terms of what's going on in Dakatcha. And so these are scenes which are sadly all too common around the Dakatcha woodlands. Wholesale destruction in some areas. Beautiful trees, which would have taken some of them 100 years to grow, if not more, which are cut down with power saws very, very quickly, and turned into a pile of logs, and very soon just into sacks of charcoal. One sack of charcoal will get the person, he will probably earn about 10 or 12 rand for one bag of charcoal, and that's all. So, you know, the value of a very precious tree is really demeaned actually through the process of charcoal burning, and the destruction in the area is sad. So this top photograph here, this would have been only in December last year, or even January actually, there would have been probably big trees across the whole of the sort of skyline there. They've all been cut down. It isn't a plot which we've now bought, and there is regeneration happening, but it's certainly a challenge. COVID-19 has also brought its own problems. We've met people in these forests doing charcoal burning who otherwise had work in Mombasa city, but when COVID came along, they lost their jobs. They had no means of providing for their families. They heard of rumors of, you know, you could get jobs making charcoal, and so they've come up to do exactly that. And that again has added to the pressure. So what are we doing? What's the action we're taking? Well, with help from others, Arosha has been able to raise funds and actually purchase the forest land in order to create a nature reserve, which we're calling the Arosha Dakatcha Nature Reserve, to protect these threatened wildlife and try and provide a safe haven for them into the long-term future. Not only that, but we're working with the communities around there, with the farmers. We're teaching them improved farming methods so that they can actually grow food for themselves and more, enough to be able to sell and get a bit of an income. We're looking to introduce beekeeping and honey production, amongst a variety of other options which we're exploring to try and help them and not rely on the forest so intensely, but rather to be able to provide for themselves. And also giving them environmental education and teaching them about what is important, why it's important to protect that forest, and that they have an amazing heritage to look after and to be proud of in that area. So to date, this is what we've managed to get. We've got about 1,000, it's probably getting on for 1,600 acres actually. These yellow blocks here are the blocks which we've managed to secure. This one was the first one we got in 2014. And we are in the process of trying to secure these other blocks which I've highlighted here. Where just today I heard we are talking to the landowner of this area, this patch here, about 200 acres of land. And the good thing is that people are willing to sell, and they're very keen to sell. And we've had quite a number of people phoning us up and saying, listen, we'd like to sell our land to you. Can you come and negotiate? And so that's been a great blessing. The eventual area we want to actually secure extends probably at least twice the distance north of this one. I haven't shown the full extent of the map, but a lot of the forest to the north has actually been destroyed and burnt. So we know that there's going to be a lot of restoration, forest restoration, that we're going to have to do. And we're linking up with an Australian company called Cassinia Environmental. There's another one here in Kenya, Eden Reforestation Projects, who are keen to work with us to actually replant areas which have gone altogether from trees, as well as encourage natural regeneration of the trees, those which have been cut and will regenerate naturally. So that's kind of where we're at. It's an exciting journey where it's quite a daunting journey as well, thinking of all that's ahead, but we're thrilled to be able to actually take some practical action to protect some of these amazing birds and animals in this area. And it's been a great privilege to do that and to work with a number of partners and so on. So we are in the process, because if I go back to that image here, because of the adjudication and the process of land selling, these areas of forest here, particularly these ones, are really being sought after by people from quite some far distance from this area within Kenya. And the landowners are selling to the first people they can sell to. If we have the cash, then we can buy them and protect them. If we don't have the cash, literally they just turn to the next person and we'll sell it there. And so that's been a really major crisis that we found ourselves in, that if we do not buy this forest, I can guarantee that within a year, this area will not be there. And it does hold Secocchus copsals, it does hold the goldenrod sengi, it does hold Secocchia pipit, and amongst a wide host of other wildlife, which is unique to this area, but it will not hold them if we're not able to take action and secure it within the next 5 to 6 months. As a result, therefore, we are looking to try and raise a very significant amount of money. We're looking at about $100,000. What's that in Rand? Someone else can do the maths for me there. I should have put it in Rand, but that's a very significant amount of money which we're looking to try and raise. We've got a GoFundMe crowdfunding site which you're welcome to visit, share, and encourage anyone you know who might be interested to help us buy a patch of forest in Kenya to protect it. Do visit out there. So that's kind of a glimpse into what we're doing. And if you want to know more about what we're doing, then we've got a concept note that's available on our website there, or do just get in touch, or even come and visit us, even better, once the COVID restrictions are lifted completely. Please do. We've got a accommodation right on the beach in Watamu, and we welcome people to come and visit and share what we're doing. So I think that's probably all, unless there are questions. That would be great.
Great, Colin. Thanks so much. Firstly, just sharing with us this amazing hidden gem, as you refer to it as, but also the alarming threats to this area. And I'm sure that with a group of people here, that there might be contacts that people could suggest that could assist with this daunting task that you have to purchase the remaining forest areas. There are a few questions. I can just go to those. Jackie asks, are the borders of those plots you're wanting to purchase what the government has drawn, or have you placed the lines there as they cover the forest?
So those boundaries are actually, to date they've been, it's all sort of community land owned by local families. So there's not been any title deeds of any sort, but all the local community members know exactly where the boundaries are, pretty much. They'll say it starts at that rock and it runs to that anthill, and then it goes to that tree over there, and then to that river sort of thing, or follows that riverbed. And so the process which we've followed is to meet with the landowner, with the neighbors, we get the chief involved, and they all walk around the boundaries, and they have some guys cut the boundary, and they agree on what is the boundary. And then we use a GPS to draw up the polygon of the boundary, and then calculate the acreage from that, and then we do the deal with them from there. So those are not government boundaries yet, but they will become the government agreed boundaries. We've handed those to the government surveyor. He has double checked them and he's happy with them. And so those will actually become the official formal boundary for the reserve.
Great, yeah. Thank you for that. And then from Colin, where's the nearest protected area to the Dakatcha Woodland?
So the nearest protected area is the Arabuko-Sokoke Forest, which is about 30, 40 kilometers further south across the Galana River or Sabaki River. That's quite a large forest. It's about 200 square kilometers, 400 square kilometers, and 40,000 hectares. But it's only a forest reserve. It's not a national park. But in the area where we are, there's no protected area at all. So it's completely unprotected. Yeah.
Thanks. And then David has the question, how effective is land purchase as a way of protecting your habitat in Kenya? For example, does small-scale illicit charcoal exploitation still go on?
It's a very good question, actually. At present, there's enough forest around outside the areas we've bought that people can still harvest charcoal and cut poles and timber from those forests. But we are under no pretenses that in due course, once that forest is gone, and it will go within the next 5 years, it'll become pretty much a desert outside of the reserve, that we're expecting the pressure to increase significantly on our little forest reserve. That being the case, then that's partly why we're engaging with the communities now as well, because we understand that as you engage in communities, as you get them on your side, as it were, as you provide them with alternatives, then there's a greater chance that they will not go in and cut charcoal and cut trees for charcoal and timber and so on. So that's kind of our strategy. Yeah.
Okay. And then Ringham has posed the question of government involvement. You know, if they're aware of the treasures of these treasures of biodiversity, what efforts are they making to conserve these species? it seems that there are no efforts whatsoever.
In many respects, it's true. Actually, there isn't much from government looking to do anything to protect that area. In theory, there's a law that charcoal burning shouldn't be happening. The law is actually that you're not allowed to transport charcoal. You're allowed to make it, but not transport it. But of course, people just pay bribes at the checkpoints along the road, and it's not infrequent to see lorry loads of charcoal on the roads. So it's a complete farce, that whole thing. Government isn't particularly well funded, and certainly don't put much effort, serious effort, into the conservation side of things. So the reality of government really coming in to make a big difference is quite small. We were, however, last week in the office of the Minister of the Environment for the county in Kilifi town last week, and he was very positive about what we're doing and very encouraging, and he said that they would give us what support they could. Now, what that can be, and very usefully, is they can write letters of support which we can use to raise funds with large donor organizations who often require that you prove that you have support of local government and so on in what you're doing. Even if they can't take action themselves, they can at least give their nod of approval and so on. So from that point of view, I think we're walking the right path. And also we're hoping that they will issue the title deeds for our land that we bought and allow us to create the private nature reserve as a result. Just in that, they will be supporting it. But in terms of them taking particular action, so for example, patrolling or even buying land themselves, that is not really an option, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for clarifying all those aspects. Mark just asks whether have you gone international? Have you approached BirdLife International with regard to sources of funding?
Yes, we have. We've definitely gone international. And we've just heard word yesterday that the World Land Trust, based in the UK, I think they are, and the US, have agreed to give us some small funding, nothing huge. It's like $12,500. We've had one or two other donations of that size from overseas. We have applied to the Rainforest Trust for a very significant, almost the full $100,000 grant, but they haven't given it to us yet. We're still hoping and praying that'll come through. But yes, we are looking overseas. And the GoFundMe crowdfunding website is based in the US, and Arosha USA, our sister project in the US, are supporting us on that and are channeling the funds to us. So all donations made through that will come straight to us.
Great, thank you. Yeah, the Nature Conservancy has also been mentioned as a possible place to look for funding, and they have international projects. You probably know about that anyway. What just, again poses that question: if Kenya is known for its wildlife, why is this area neglected? Now you've probably answered that, but do you want to add anything more to what you've said already?
Yeah, I think, Rick, I can. I think this area has been neglected. Kenya is well known for its big, hairy, four-footed animals, the elephants and rhinos and lions and things. People are very familiar with that. Actually, also well known for its birds, I guess. But then you will find that birders tend to go to the hotspots where the particular species they know can be found. So, for example, Secaucus scopes, the Dakatcha Woodlands, it's about an hour and a half's drive from Malindi to get to where you'd see the scopes owl. Arabuko-Sokoke, on the other hand, is about half an hour to get there from. So, for your bird tour operators who are going to be coming looking for those sorts of species, they don't need to go all the way to Dakatcha in order to see the species that they want their tourists to tick off. Now, if you're atlasing, that might be something different. And I've actually thought about organizing some bird atlasing safaris and getting some of the guides here to advertise for that and have you know, atlases come up from South Africa, and anyone from around the world come and join in some atlasing trips to far-flung corners of Kenya, which would include the Dakatcha Woodlands, no doubt. But in general, your tourists don't really need to get to those areas. It hasn't got the big five, so that's why it's kind of been tucked away and out of the way. In the 90s, there was quite a lot of bandit activity up there, and there had been farmers in the 80s there, but they all pulled out and it was completely deserted. In fact, when I first went in there, there were very few people in 2000, and it's only as sort of security has increased that now people are there. Now they're putting tarmac roads, they put water in, so the area is no longer a remote outpost. It's very much accessible, and that's what's raising its profile now.
Great, thanks very much, Colin.